Alrighty, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name is Dave and thank you for listening as always. This is the review as your Yartapuulti Footy Club trekked on down to the Apple Island after an inauspicious start, found their motor in the second half and ultimately were too much for the still winless North Melbourne Footy Club, outclassed with a score of 16-11, 107 to 7-6-48. Jason HORNE-FRANCIS sparkled against his old club and had a bit to say to him too. Todd Marshall looked like Scotty Scheffler at the Masters, just striking him sweetly from wherever he was on the field. And we were able to get away comfortably despite a few injury niggles striking again we sit in third on the ladder by the end of the round. And today, Jamie's out today. He's on a well-deserved small little holiday with his family. He'll be back with me tomorrow to record a Carlton preview. But it's my pleasure to welcome a special guest, a friend of the pod and a friend to Port Twitter, I think, as well, a name many will know, Mr. Albert and Power himself, Dave Lloyd. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for having me on, mate. Been looking forward to this chat since we teed it up. So, yeah, and obviously good to review a good game where we just went down, got the chocolates and came home. So, yeah, looking forward to having a chat and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here as well, and yeah, I appreciate your support over the years, and even helping me get a Guernsey that I didn't. You helped me get that retro round Guernsey last year, picking it up at the store and shipping it off to my parents for me, which is still sitting at my parents because they haven't gotten around to sending it to me yet, but I know it's there. So,
All good. Anything to help someone out.
yeah, no, I love it. Thank you. Before we get into the review of the weekend's game, I thought since you've coming on here for the first time this year, to have a chat, just your overall thoughts and how we're going this year as a side. How we're playing, how you feel, how comfortable you are with where we're sitting so far. Just give us your thoughts on all that.
Well, it kind of feels like we're on repeat a little bit, where I guess collectively the football world looks at us as though we're not really sure what we're doing from quarter to quarter. Some of the comments recently, I think Chris Scott called us an emotional team, and that's a pretty good way to put it. I didn't find that offensive because I think we play on emotion when we're going well, but unfortunately that emotion doesn't tend to burn quite so deep when we're playing the big games as we have this year, where obviously Melbourne beating us here, the showdown that we never really rolled up for, and bar 20 minutes against Collingwood, we've sort of thrown in the towel against them. So, yeah, I think when we're going well, things are going well, and when we go poorly in the games that we'd like to win, again, bit of repeat. So, three disappointing games, particularly the showdown. I think the Collingwood game was a little disappointing, but considering how well we started. And the thing that really got us going there was the pressure. As we know, we pressure, we get the ball forward, we get repeat entries, and we score. But yeah, those two games were pretty disappointing. Other than that, I think we've done what we had to do, and beating Geelong in Geelong for the first time in a long time was a real good win. But I think we're probably where we should be. I think you probably would have dropped the Geelong game and won the showdown if you'd mapped us out at the start of the year, probably coming into this game with 7 or 8 wins. So where we need to be, a few injury concerns, but we're getting some soldiers back on deck now. So yeah, I think we're where we should be, where we probably thought we'd be, maybe just with a mix of wins and losses we may not have seen coming. But we've got a few testing games coming up, which is good to have through the middle of the year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, exactly. I thought about that a few weeks ago because me and Jamie have talked about 3-week blocks, and when we looked at the Crows game and Collingwood and Geelong and all those games, Geelong was the one I was thinking, win the showdown, probably losing Geelong. But it's you look at that Geelong game and go, well, if we'd won that one and won the showdown, then we're on an even better keel. But overall, it's kind of where we should be. And I mean, the real question is at the end of the season is where we want to be, and then when the questions that we want answered is where we'll see if that narrative has changed or if it's just the same again. So yeah, it's an interesting spot to be because all the eyes are on when the going gets tough at the end of the year. But for this round, for once, we considering the Hawthorn game last week was an absolute nail biter, and well, it wasn't really a nail biter. We just thought we were going to lose until we won it. But this week we went down and probably did what we were expected to do. I put on Twitter as well that North Melbourne, for all their winlessness and all that stuff, they haven't been. I think the largest loss they've had this year was 75 points to Geelong. they're not a team that gets blown out because they have shown a propensity to get forward and get some goals here and there. It's just they're not good enough to keep it going for an entire game and really outclass an opposition. So I think 59 points is probably a fairly good win, particularly away from home for us as well. Maybe if we'd gotten them at Adelaide Oval, we'd be really looking to get a proper percentage booster, but it was a reasonable win, I would think. At the end of the day, the start was a little bit inauspicious, as I said, but once you look at it at the end, you go, well, that's exactly what you want to do.
I think it's a little bit of what you said about North Melbourne. They obviously got the coach of the generation early on against us. They picked that zone apart. They moved the ball, short kicks, 25, 30-metre kicks, just on a little bit of an angle and chipped their way through, which shows Clarkson, obviously, his nous. He picked the game apart by way of our game plan, but they just didn't have the ability to stick at it for 4 quarters. And actually had a chat with a North Melbourne friend before I came on just to get his feel, and he said that that's what they've seen a lot throughout the year. 15 minutes here and there of adequate football, not dangerous footy, but adequate. And then they just fall away really poorly. When they fall away, that's his biggest disappointment, is the drop-offs in games. And I said to him, I hear you, brother. I know what you're talking there. So, yeah, obviously they do it a little more often, but yeah, early on that I thought they had us pretty well. Like from a strategy wise, they were on top. But again, as I mentioned to you pre-show, once our pressure lifted a bit in the second quarter, then things started to really roll our way. And yeah, backline got well on top, which was good to see. A couple of guys looking comfortable back there.
Yeah, it was. I think at one point, I can't remember if it was in the late in the first quarter, in the second quarter there, which I still don't exactly know how they measure it, but I'd love to get more insight into it. But the little Fox Footy pressure meter or whatever they bring up, and ours, we were right down the bottom of it at the lowest you could be, and whereas North Melbourne were right in the elite category. So that kind of summed up kind of what we were seeing eye test wise as well. I said it on Twitter. I just said we're just not working hard enough. You could see when we got a little, chain of passes, handballs, kicks going forward. We had the avenue forward was there. It's just we weren't working hard enough. A few turnovers here and there. That kick in early in the game when we were a goal up and they scored a point. I think it was Houston kicked it in, or was it foul? I can't remember actually. But they tried to do a little quick hand pass to get through the middle, which you sent me that stat off air about the getting it forward from kick-ins and that we're the best in the league. So there is a reason that they try to be brave going through that. But, it is Port Adelaide footy at its worst is just often our own, making mistakes that help out the opposition rather than being completely dominated, particularly in games like this.
It's a damning thing to say about your own team when you think it's the effort that's lacking.
Yeah, it's
because of all the things that you don't need to be gifted, that you don't need to have coached into you, all of those things, dedication, skill, they're gifted to you, but the effort is not a gift. It's just an action. Just do it. So when we look at our sides and can't disagree with you regularly, I'm sure we all say, we're just not trying hard enough. We're just not working hard enough. Which is a damning thing to say, but it's also, you look at the opposition, as I said, I thought they were pretty clinical early, and then they fell away after that. Well, once their good ball handlers sort of got held out of the game, we took control, and as you said, we just looked a little lazy early on, and that's perhaps that emotional factor that I spoke about before. We weren't quite ready to go. I think the Rosie injury happened like within 8 seconds of the bounce, pretty much the first contest.
It was the first clearance.
First clearance, and he went for that sort of kick through out of the air. And I wonder if that just took a little bit out of the tyres early on, because the rest of the guys obviously would have seen him hobbling around and sort of gone, oh, geez, and he just we took a punt on him. He hurt himself further. And now we've brought him down to Tassie for a game that we would safely think we have in our grasp. And I know he's hurt again. So just wondering if that took a little bit of air out of the tyres early. But once we got moving, obviously we'll have a look at the stats and who got a lot of the ball. But I thought Boak on the wing was fantastic. Some numbers there for what he did on the weekend.
Yeah, no, he was good. And it was funny that even with Rosie out and, well, not out, he played out the game, but a lot of time sitting forward as the game went on. It was interesting the fact that it is an ankle injury, so it's nothing to do with his previous injury. But I was watching a bit of the game back earlier. Just I said to you off air, got a new TV, so airplaying the
Why
game on.
not?
Yeah, just watch it in 65-inch now. And I there was a period in the second quarter where he was running through the middle and he kind of looked okay, but it's still just that lack of explosive pace, especially if he's got a ginger ankle. But particularly with Butters starting on the bench as well, and then Rosie out, as you said, it might have put a little bit of just that, oh God, what are we, what kind of bad luck are we getting now through there? But, it was guys like, it was really good to see Ollie Wines back up, after going out with the heart palpitations, which we found out soon after the game. That's just something the club's aware of. He's aware of. They handled it the way they should. And he came back in and looked like he hadn't missed a beat. Excuse the pun. But, yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was a game for some of the veterans, as you mentioned, Boke, as well.
Well, Wines, I put some numbers down earlier against Adelaide. He had 22 touches, 10 tackles against Geelong, 33 and 7. Obviously went off early against Hawthorn, and then Saturday had 26 and 6, and he's had 21 clearances in 3 weeks. Like that, that's back to Ollie's best form. 20 touches, 10 tackles, 7 clearances a game he's sort of averaging. And it begs the question, does the having HORNE-FRANCIS, Rosie and Butters all in there take away a weapon that is a genuine weapon in Ollie at his best? I think with Rosie injured for a week and then obviously missing, and then getting sort of put forward on the weekend, we've seen when Ollie's been able to play that key inside role, we look a slightly different team. You want your captain in there, and he's a brilliant player, but yeah, the balance just looks a little bit better with Ollie there. HORNE-FRANCIS bursting away, and either Drew or Butters doing the job that they need to do in the middle. With Rioli out and the bye next week, we may even see perhaps come back and Rosie be a bit fitter and maybe a bit more time forward. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's something that's come up a bit in chats. Certainly, Jamie and I, but as well as just general, Twitter, media, radio, is the midfield mix, because we've clearly got a bunch of talented guys, whether it be the youngsters coming through, the next generation guys, or as we've seen, Ollie coming in there, and then Willem Drew's just bouncing around and just doing whatever needs to be done as well. And yeah, I the more I see Ollie, if he's fit and is actually having had a preseason finally and have that fitness level, and even being the fact he went out of a game like he did last week with that kind of unique concern, that is something that he's just, part of his life now, it seems, for him to come back and just, not miss a, again, I don't mean to keep making this pun, but not miss a beat. And he just looked, and I said a few, I think, I can't remember which game it was, but there was a game a few weeks ago where he was best on. And I just said, it's the best game I'd seen him play since the Brownlow. And again, this weekend, I like that he's popping up, and his goal kicking hasn't always been good, but I feel like both his disposal efficiency and his goal kicking has been better this year than what my memory of it is, which is good to see as well.
For sure. And I think it's where he's getting those kicks as well. We know that our tools, the way that we set up, we tend to get fairly wide with our tools, and just sort of thinking recent memory, it feels like he's been, sort of top dead centre, kicking goal, having shots on goal from 45 out straight in front the last few weeks. I think on the weekend, that's where he scored from as well. But yeah, I think it shows he's an asset, and his best position is deep inside in the midfield. So yeah, it's kind of feels like you're robbing us if we don't play him there. And yeah, and I thought again, Boke on the weekend, some of his numbers, he's been awesome. He's been, in the last 3 weeks, he's 10 rebound 50s and 17 inside 50s. He's clearly fit, and we know Boke's conditioning and how well he works, how hard he works at that, but clearly he's running on top of the ground at the moment and working his opponents over, because he's getting up and down like we haven't seen him for a year or two. Last year, that back obviously hindered him pretty much, cop those 2 big hits, and looked like he copped one earlier this year, but he's in great form at the moment. And that complements those younger guys when we've got a spread of age and experience and youth playing well. yeah, that's when we look at our best. And yeah, I think on the weekend I sort of painsed over my 5-1, but yeah, there was a couple of old guys in there, and that really deserved a mention in Wines and Boak.
Yeah, yeah, no, the 5-1, which we'll get to later on. I struggled with it. It's always a good problem to have. To because there was a few weeks there was be at the showdown of Collingwood that it was a struggle to try to figure out who'd want to go in there. But I got I don't know what Boak's done to the goal scoring gods out there, but he's having some decent. There are a lot of them are from general play and snaps and kicks under maybe a bit of pressure, and certainly that goal, that what looked like almost the goal of the year in the showdown that grazed the paint of the post. But I thought he was finally going to score one this week again, and I think he had a decent opportunity, but on an angle with the snap. And yeah, what is it? 0 goals, 12, 0 goals, 13. It doesn't take away from his game at all. It's just a very amusing, because now I'm watching games, and every time he's in goal scoring opportunity, I'm just like, let's break the hoodoo here. But
And he absolutely bottled that one on Saturday as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like it was very, left foot, but he was 5 meters out. A little bit of work, bit of space to work through.
Mhm.
If he'd pulled it tight or hit the post, you sort of go, yeah, that's fine. But he absolutely shanked it and didn't even look like it was going to score.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I had that little superstitious moment because I thought, yeah, no, he's on here. This is going to be fine. It's halfway through writing the tweet, like, thank fuck, Boak's finally kicked a goal or whatever I was going to say about it, and then like as it just blazes across and he's kicked the air out of it, I've just sheepishly delete, yeah, because it was just that good of an opportunity. But no, that doesn't take anything away from what he's, it'd obviously be a cherry on top if he's kicking those goals. But what he's doing up and down the field, as you said, is exactly what we want, especially from a bloke that's 35 and playing as it was his 357th game of the weekend. Who did he equal or pass? Did he equal Gary Ablett Jr. or pass him this weekend?
Yeah, I think he might have passed him. Yeah, it
Mm,
was either, like you said, yeah, it was either equal or pass. But
yeah.
defensively, obviously playing against the winless bottom of the ladder side is going to be the easiest way to go about it. But I thought it was Radagalia's best performance of the year. He was
Mm-hmm.
pretty switched on. Thought he was good on Larky. That's Larky's first goalless game, I think, in 39 games. So
Mm-hmm.
um, kept him out of the game. And our small running halfbacks, you mentioned that stat before about transitioning. Farrell really looks. This time last year, we weren't sure if it was him. I think we now know that is him across that deep distributor role, which I know they're different sizes, but sort of McKenzie used to play that role, distributing out of the defensive 50 and then
Mm-hmm.
go to played undersized, and Farrell probably plays a little bit undersized as well because he doesn't tend to get the small forward. I think both him and Houston on track for back-to-back All Australians. I think in the form he was in, they were both good on the weekend. Gave the big guys plenty of support.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, Dan Houston's just, it's almost become normal for him now to play at this level, which is, we still appreciate it. But yeah, he's incredible. Yeah, as you met Farrell, because I think it was, yeah, as you said, even last year, we were just wanting to see round out the game with just, the general, he's just getting himself involved a lot more than he ever has. And certainly that sweet peg he has, it's just obviously just that's an incredible asset to have. And obviously, he kicked a really nice goal. I think he kicked the opener this weekend, actually, um, with a really just that typical Kane Farrell from 50. With any other, most of the other players in the league, they're going to struggle with it, but he just makes it look easy. That stat that we've mentioned a couple of times, by the way, I've just scrolled down in my notes here. It's how often teams turn their kick in into an inside 50. So, transitioning from a kick in your defensive 50 down to an attacking 50 possession, 35.3% of the time, which is leading the league. The next best is the Bulldogs at 30.7. So it's a significant difference there as well. And speaks to, although I mentioned a little bit of that turnover that we had early in the game that got North Melbourne's opening goal. That's more as we talked about the negative side of it. It's more application and attitude towards the game. When we're on, that's clearly our way forward because we've seen it now for 10 weeks or 11 weeks now that we're going to attack the middle, and that stat kind of speaks to that as well, which is the defensive unit doing that start of the attack stuff that they have to do down there as well.
I think you think of Radaglia, Zerk Thatcher, and Alir, and if I said to you, how do they go by foot? My assessment would be they're proficient. They don't
Mm,
take any risks, but they're all quite adept at being able to kick that 30 metre to a target. And the way that our mids push up and down, and the way the game's played in the modern game, that allows Houston and Farrell and Burton to get that little bit of space. And if they can just hit one of them from 25, 30 metres away, that's when we slingshot and we're away. So
mm,
I think it's an advantage having your three big defenders who are capable by foot. None of them are brilliant, but they're all capable. When you think around the league, there's some defenders who are just, they get the ball and you see that they don't know what to do. They're looking for a handball. Our
hmm.
guys are all happy to hit a target. Super important the way that we play, and I don't think it's any coincidence that while we needed the bigger bodies back there, we also targeted bigger bodies that can kick the ball. Like we didn't just take any big body. We wanted guys who could kick it because ultimately they're replacing McKenzie and probably Cleary more so than Jonas. Cleary's back
Mm.
injury last year. Keep in mind the year before he was probably our first pick, our full back, and Tom Cleary's a capable distributor by foot. So in the long term, it's probably replacing McKenzie and Cleary by foot, but just with bigger bodies as well. And they're just starting to gel back there. I think they're starting to look like a unit who understands each other a little bit better. Now we're 11 weeks in, and that'll be important as that sort of grows over the next 12 or 13 weeks, how we go later in the year, because we know that's when our test comes
Hmm.
deep later in the year, and particularly with our key defenders, can they hold the proper big key forwards? But they were good on the weekend, and I think they're getting a little better every week.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think we said when we were reviewing games earlier in the year, I was actually reasonably happy with how they started because I was giving, we were giving them that time to gel because we knew that was just going to be they've got to get used to each other, their patterns on the field, even though they know, on paper what they've got to do. It's still understanding in game how to work with each other. And I was reasonably actually. I mean, Zerk Thatcher, I thought started just he's really impressed me because he's probably the one I was less aware of than Asava coming in, and I've been really impressed with what he does. Both he's just quite moves and covers ground quite well, and complements that defensive structure as you said, the distributing the ball and getting that slingshot going forward. But yeah, Sava's, he did a job on reasonable job on Tom Hawkins a few weeks ago, and then as you said, keeping. I can't remember if it was 29 or 39 games, but either way, it's a long stretch of games that Nick Larkey's been, and we've typically had issues with sometimes, particularly against a team like North Melbourne. Sometimes you'd have one of their big, their one star would get up for a bag, and we had Blake Hardwick decide to kick a bag of five on us in a quarter and a bit last week, but. I thought that was really impressive to see them do a job on them and not really have anyone looking like they're really going to tear us apart down there. It was just a really good, as we said, it's caveated by knowing that this is the bottom team of the league, but um, it's to be 8-3 at this point with a very new defensive unit. I think quite a decent place to be. We still want to see improvement across some of those, as we said, the application to the game more than anything. But got to give some props to, obviously, we'll get in. He's probably going to feature in some votes later on and whatnot. But great to see Todd Marshall looking confident and, especially with Dixon out and Willie goes down as well, and you're just looking for someone to stand up in that forward line. Again, it's in a game against the bottom side, but you need, it's kind of like Jason Gillespie knocking 200 across the line against Bangladesh all those years ago. No one else did it, so and we needed someone to stand up and kick 5 goals. And Todd he looked. That's Todd Marshall from a couple of years ago. That was for me.
It certainly was, and it was interesting to watch how he went about his game, but also um, probably figured fairly prominently in the negative thoughts around on social media how Finlayson went about his game, and you probably need to be the one where you watch the replay from behind the goals where you don't actually see not the broadcast, what the clubs would have access to.
Mm.
And it wouldn't surprise me if Finlayson got a bit of a pat on the back. I know to the eye he looked like he had a pretty ordinary game, but for Marshall to have the space that he had to work into to kick the 5 he did, because it wasn't there wasn't a lot of hard work in the five. Like, he executed beautifully, but bar one, I think 3 or 4 of them were fairly uncontested marks running into space, and that's the work that obviously the other guys do. So perhaps Finlayson helped out on that. But yeah, Marshall was brilliant. He yeah, like you said, back to stroking it like he does, sort of just leans back a little bit and just strokes it nicely. It was good to see a little bit of confidence. And then I think once he got that 1 or 2, obviously key forwards get a sniff of it. They start to, against the bottom side, the ball's coming down pretty regularly. And if other players are doing the hard work and creating the space, then yeah, he obviously would have enjoyed looking up and seeing Houston and those guys running at him. And I think it was Houston drilled him out wide on one, and then Boak nailed Byrne-Jones very soon after. And I thought, they're the types of kicks inside 50 forwards want. Yeah, drop it in front of me, let me run onto it. And Todd was really good. Yeah, good to see him back with the bag and some confidence.
Yeah, it was confidence and just a smile on his face, and just looking like he's enjoying his footy. And you almost forget that it was earlier in the game. He went off for an 8. I don't know if it was the full scale. I just think it was just an HIA, because it wasn't a serious thing. But I thought at one point I just thought, oh well, sometimes you err on the side of caution in your own head and go, oh, geez, are we going to not see Marshall back? And then with Willie having gone off already, it was a little bit of a worry. But he came back on and looked like he was back to the Todd Marshall, because we all know that Todd Marshall. I brought it up a few weeks ago on the I was running through some career goal scoring accuracy percentages, and Marshall was right up there with Jay Schultz kind of level of accuracy across his career. But he has those yippy periods. But this was, it was 5 goals straight. I think he didn't miss on the weekend, did he?
No.
Yeah.
And I also read earlier, he from the 11 games, I think he's got 11 direct goal assists, and the leading figure in the competition's 19. So he was in about 10th or 12th place on the list of direct goal assists. So while he might not be getting those 3 or 4 bags, or those 3 or 4 goals a week that we want or would like to see, he's also handing off 1 a week. So it's the next generation of forwards when Charlie gives it away, which we'll probably figure at the end of this year. I did have that in my notes to discuss the level of management that Charlie's already had this year. It's been interesting, even when we've probably been a little light on troops, because Ollie Lord is just coming back from his knee and just getting a bit of running in the SANFL, and young Tom Scully in the SANFL there's probably not quite ready. But it's been interesting that, we've managed Dixon twice in the first half of the year, and then we've got a bye next week. So that'll be 3 out of 13 weeks that he'll have stayed off of the park. So it's clearly a deliberate ploy to have him up and fit at the end of the year, as opposed to playing banged up like we have the last couple of years. I guess folding him up, putting him on a flight to Tasmania is not ideal in the early part of the year. But yeah, have you seen that? Looks like a very. I'm thinking we might probably see it another 2 times yet.
Oh, you've got to think so, considering, as you said, there's 2 times in the first 11 weeks now. I've been quite, because clearly, earlier in the year, Charlie at his best was still, a net plus for the forward line. But I think the last 2 weeks prior to this rest down in Tassie, I've said a couple of times on the podcast, I'm like, he doesn't look, he's moving even, Charlie kind of has a lumbersome cadence to his movement anyway, but he still does actually cover ground pretty well. But there was a couple of kind of kicks into the pocket that he led to, but just didn't lead to with the same power that he does. And so I wasn't surprised. Actually, when we previewed last week, but we hadn't seen, it was before the news. I think the news dropped that he was going to be rested about 20 minutes after we finished recording. I brought it up on the recording. I was just like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was rested, because I don't think he's moving well. So yeah, you've got to think it'd at least be two more planned, and then you'd hope that they're planned and not forced because he actually does get injured. But it is a concern, because you don't want to be having to have that as a kind of thought in the back of your mind, how we're going to manage someone who's at his best in all Australian caliber forward. And I love him. I'm very, very vocal about that on the podcast. He's been one of my. I just like, and I often push back against some of the detractors because I do get, but sometimes it's more like he does attract a lot of attention just based on his body and what he can do down there. And but yeah, he's been a concern for me the last couple of weeks. The way he's been moving. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I've just thought he was moving a little bit more lumbersome the last couple of weeks, both I guess against Geelong and then Hawthorn last week as well.
Well, I thought he was pretty influential against Hawthorn in the middle late when we
Mm-hmm.
got a little bit of a run on, but he sort of reverted to that change in the rule earlier this year where they sort of brought back in the, let's call it the Matt Primus rule, where you would be
Yeah.
able to stand and take the opposition player's ground.
Mm,
Obviously, Meek, I think it is for Hawthorn's a big guy, he's a big lump, but
mm,
Charlie in the middle there was no jump and ruck contest. It was purely took the body and sort of nullified because they'd had us for most of the day with Meek jumping over Vicentini.
mm,
And then when Charlie went in there and just took the body and sort of broke the contest, broke it even, and then the HORNE-FRANCIS and the guys took control. Yeah, but he didn't look right because he wasn't even trying to jump. He was just waiting for the ball to bounce, sidling up to the drop zone, and then and holding his ground. But I thought he was good, but yeah, clearly looked banged up, and only thought last night, having a bit of a think about what we were going to chat about tonight. We had the Sunday game against Hawthorn, so only a 5-day break down to Tassie
mm,
for North with a travel, and then Saturday to Thursday another 5-day break through to the Carlton game. So 2 5-day breaks with travel in the middle was a fairly testing little 10-day period. Obviously, while we've got the bye after to give the guys the time to recover, but yeah, it just looked like 2 games in 5 days might have been too much for him. Perhaps if
mm.
this was a 7-day break, he might have come up, or he might have played down in Tassie. But yeah, it was clearly a deliberate ploy, and yeah, just looks a bit banged up. But yeah, we've managed to get through, I think, without him real onus on him, because we've had some forwards, especially Rioli. Rioli's been really good this year.
Mm-hmm.
Byrne-Jones, I want to touch on Darcy Byrne-Jones and the way he's been going the last few weeks. He's
Incredible.
kicked two goals in each of the last 3 games. And he's laid 18 tackles in those 3 weeks. So he's getting a reward for his effort forward. I thought he was pretty good on the weekend. Again, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of pressure, especially deep. He tends to play the deep small. So his pressure is really close to goal, as evidenced in the Hawthorn game. Where he was when the pressure was on was 5 metres out from goal. So he's been really good. I think he's probably, as much as McEntee puts the pressure on, I think DBJ is the catalyst for our level of pressure forward, and he's been good the last few.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm a big DBJ fan, even back in his back one days. But it's been such a refreshing and a move, especially this year. Obviously last year it started happening a bit, but this year with him having probably the full preseason and understanding of his role going forward into this year, he's really flourished. There was a couple of weeks where it dropped off a bit, but that was probably more. Again, sometimes when players in those kind of positions look like they're dropping off, it's sometimes a symptom of the entire, where we're playing a little bit worse or, losing some of those games. That's more a team symptomatic thing rather than anything they're doing wrong. It's just the game's not some of those positions, the game needs to come to you. And if you're getting, blasted by Collingwood because they just keep going forward, then Darcy Byrne-Jones can't do much. But yeah, his highlights package of goals by the end of the year, if he keeps going the way he's going. Obviously last week's an incredible goal, but some of the ones he's kicked earlier, and he kicked a bag of 3 earlier in the year where they're all on the run from angles, all kinds of things. So I'm really impressed with what he's doing down there, and particularly with unfortunately, it looks like we're out without Willie definitely this week, and then I think the injury report said 2 to 3 weeks with that calf. So was serendipitous to the buys coming up, so that's one of those weeks, and then it probably might be a test for afterwards if it comes up okay. So yeah, because Willie's been a revelation down there as well. I think he's playing. We've tried a few, over the years, whether it be getting Motlop in or whatever, but Willie. I've said to Jamie a couple of times, like he's the forgotten part of the Jane. He came in that Jason Horne-Francis trade and all the machinations of how that ended up getting figured out, and well, obviously Jason Horne-Francis is going to be a generational player the way he's going. You know, Willie Rioli's kind of seems like the forgotten part of that, but he's been incredible this year. You know, again, one of those players that sometimes when the game's not going well for us, he looks like he's gone missing, but it's more a part of the symptomatic of the entire game. But if we're getting the ball forward and creating opportunities, Willie's right in there, whether it be applying pressure and tackling or, you know, and giving little kicks off and providing assists or obviously kicking bags of 2 or 3.
The first internal trial that I went and had a look at, my first comment was, have a look at the guy that used to be Willie Rioli. He just looked fit. He looked like he was probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 kilos down on last year. And I know when I talk about player weights just in case, but he looked really trim, looked like he was on top of the ground early on. He looked in really good nick, and I think he's still our leading goal kicker. DBJ might have caught him on the weekend, or Marshall might have made it fairly tight. They'd all be about the same sort of 18 to 20 mark, somewhere around there. But Rioli was our leading goal kicker for several weeks and had a couple of quiet ones. But as you said, that's symptomatic of being a small forward when the ball's not coming in to suit you. So that will hurt for a few weeks, and it's a matter of who comes in. I guess Soldier down. Rosie, I don't know if you've read any reports, but Rosie didn't train with the main group today. So given
I saw a tweet about that today.
Tuesday before Thursday game, and I know you guys will do a preview tomorrow night, but you'd think Rosie would be out, and obviously Rioli out as well. So a couple of guys to come in. Dixon will come back in, you would think. Soldo trained with the main side, but I don't want to steal all your thunder for tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. It'll be it's good to I think Soldo. I actually when I saw that he trained with the side, I went back and was like, oh, check the injury report again. He's not even on there, so the assumption is he's fit and raring to go. But yeah, back to the game. I guess did you have any other notes on the game in particular before we get into I know stats. There'll be some stats talk when we do our votes. So. Anything of note from the game that you want to touch on before we get into that?
No, look, I have my, as I mentioned, Radagalia, the back half and how those guys are going, and probably when they started to sort of develop a little bit over the last few weeks, develop that relationship, was good to see him just sort of get some real confidence on the weekend. And yeah, as you said, the caveat is you're against the bottom side, so it's a little hard to measure, but all you can do is take out of it what you take out of it. And I think we take a few things out. Probably only thing I've noticed the last month is Bergman's been a little bit off, been a little bit quiet, I think.
Yeah, only had 9 or 10 disposals on the weekend. I noted quickly when I was looking at things, and
had a few quiet weeks. So whether that's the role that he's filling, and I sort of can't think of what he's doing differently to what he was doing before, but yeah, he's been a little bit quiet. Other than that, we take the 10 goals, we take the 4 points, and we get on the jet home.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wonder what the guys like Jace Bergman coming in have done to sometimes the touches that the likes of Bergman and co are going to get. So I guess that's the mix going forward. But I don't think he's done. Yeah, no, go ahead.
One guy we didn't touch on the weekend, who probably will register in our votes, was HORNE-FRANCIS, which is sort of
well, that's why I'm hoping.
He's.
I knew he's gonna come up in I think probably both of our votes. So that's why I was saving, because I've got plenty of love to give to HORNE-FRANCIS when we get to the Player of the Year votes, just to tease someone that's going to feature, which is probably obvious. But yeah, we can get into it. We'll start with goal of the week. So I'll let you go first with your nomination for a goal of the week.
Yeah, there was a few that stood out. There was one where Georgiades tapped it back in. Finlayson tapped it on to Byrne-Jones, and he snapped one from in close. Thought that was pretty good. Farrell obviously stroking his from outside 50 as he does. And he does just stroke them from 50, and they sort of land second or third row. I do get to watch the boys train occasionally, and some of the kicks that he just nails, I swear they're sort of 60, 65 metres from when he hits it to when someone catches it, when there's, sort of just drills. It's amazing the ease with which he just caresses the ball that far. It's like a pure golf swing. There's nothing in it other than just pure timing. And he kicked a really nice one as well. But when Zach Butters came onto the ground, some really good commentary. Obviously, Dylan Shield went to pick him up. There was some sort of, who's going to Butters? Oh, Shield's going to him. Bowl up, tap, clearance, bounce, runs inside 50 and goal. So I thought Butters' goal in that first quarter, about 6 or 7 minutes into the first quarter, was the pick of the day, just the way he strolled onto the ground and sort of went, here, I'll take that one and run and nail it.
So there's Zach Butters. He's on now, so just watch if it is the Liam Shields tag. And straight away into the action. Wouldn't this be some sort of start? He's been on the ground for 10 seconds. Thank you very much. How good is that?
He's a fair player, that mate. So Sheasel's not electric, but he's not slow. He stands shoulder to shoulder with him at the bounce, Butters. And by the time Butters kicks the ball, he's 8 metres adrift.
It was, and as you said, I love commentary that matches up with the moment. Because they were just like, oh, Butters is on the field. Oh, let's see what Shields does, and then just Butters streaks away and knocks one in from 50 after a bounce, after his 50th bounce of the year. I have to assume because he's a proficient in it. That was on my short list as well, and probably would I was bouncing between a few for my nomination, and one you mentioned is what I'm going to go with. I love DBJ's featured a lot this year, and I try to sometimes when there's a good one from someone else, I try to feature him. And Marshall, some of his set shots from 50 on an angle were really good, but I just couldn't go past that DBJ snap.
To the top of the square, Rosie resting deep. George Yardy's kept it in play. Byrne-Jones! That's the best of the day. A couple of clever taps. You can just see here, Georgiades bang, and then Finlayson.
Obviously, it's very reminiscent of a few weeks ago, and if you recall, Charlie Dixon, there was one that was looking like it was going to be a point, and he tapped it back in. I think it was Willie Rioli that ended up snapping the goal. Yeah. And I like that looks like it's something that they're looking to do is keep the ball alive with some earnest as well. They're not just slapping it down and trying. They're really punching it back and knowing that someone's going to kind of be around the ball, around the fall of the ball for it. And yeah, DBJ just can kick him from anywhere at the moment, and snaps truly. And yeah, so that's got to be. I like the entirety of the play is good. The finish from DBJ is obviously fantastic, but the entirety of the play is really, really aesthetically pleasing as well for a nomination. So it'll be an interesting one because there's two very different goals this week. One running one from the centre bounce as you nominated with Butters, and then just one of those flashy snaps that DBJ's got in his bag this year. So a couple of good nominations, which is it's always nice to come out of a game because me and Jamie have had a few games this year. the Crows game, the Crows game was a struggle. I picked one of the five, and there wasn't that many good ones. So it's good to have a game.
Lucky you don't have a point of the week competition, because that would have been a long review after the Adelaide game, because there was some genuinely rubbish shots on goal that night. So
I think I did actually bring it up. I said we should have done point of the week because if you're going for style, then you would have been Boak grazing the post. But then if you went the other way to the, could have been cynical and been like, what's the worst kick of the day? So yeah. No, it's good to have a week a lot better than that, and the finishing's actually been pretty. We've gotten better lately, I think. Overall, you got guys like Ollie Wines finishing pretty well, Marshall on the weekend, and HORNE-FRANCIS kicking a goal a game, which is really important. All right, the Sweeney Award, which is just the warm and fuzzy one, a moment in the game that made you feel good. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I think earlier in can't remember, excuse me, if it was the Melbourne game or the Adelaide game where a ball went through the opposition goals. So they'd kicked that goal that went through about chest height. And when I say chest height, it was pretty much Radaglia chest height.
Oh, that was Melbourne again. It was a Cosy Pickett goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and he chose to just casually mark the ball, half a metre behind the goal line, and just wasn't switched on. It was obviously one of those moments where he wasn't in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And on the weekend, North Melbourne ruckman, big Sherry, I think they pronounce it, was having a shot on goal, and sort of 45 out, and Ratugolea on the goal line, got right up there, just got a fingertip on it as it sort of, hit the back of the pads, as we see on the goal line technology.
Most improved Kangaroos players this year.
You've mozzed him now, have you?
Straight through them. Hang on a minute.
Hang on. We're going to the line, Judge.
Yeah, I think from the naked eye, it looked like it was touch.
For review, umpire's call is touch behind. Please confirm if it was touched.
Will be touched.
Review underway.
Well,
It's a close thing.
back of the hand.
So it's the left hand. You can see by that angle.
And that
That's
should
it
be
there.
touched, yeah.
Yep.
So they didn't make
It's
the
good
distance,
call by
to be
the
fair.
umpire.
Review
that's-
complete. Looking
yeah.
at these angles, we can see the ball was touched prior to crossing the back of the goal line. Decision on scoreboard.
You mozzed him, Lee.
I did. He didn't strike that one well enough, the big fella. Well done, Ratugolea.
Wasn't a bad kick. Just
And I just thought, even against the bottom side, to be switched on enough to think I can get that one. When against one of the top sides, he wasn't switched on. That made me think, okay, maybe he's just feeling a little bit more comfortable in his role, a little bit more comfortable in the unit. And that was my warm and fuzzy moment for the weekend, was like, yes, that's what we're paying you to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was on my shortlist as well, and yeah, it was particularly, as you said, to be switched on in that moment, because I think at that point that was around when we were 35 to 40 points up. So, you could be forgiven for missing it maybe, but you want to see the guys. It's all the. It always reminds me of my dad always telling me about when you're given chores as a kid and sweeping up a room, like it's getting the dirt out of the corners. Like it doesn't, not many people will notice it, but the room will look a lot cleaner. And when a guy's going up and, spoil, trying to get that one on the goal line, when you're leading by 40 points against the bottom side, the result's probably in the bag. That's sweeping the corners a little bit too. It's just showing that you're ready for the, it's a little moment in that game, but as you said, it's warm and fuzzy because it gives you a good feeling going forward with what his role is going to be. I love that. And I love Asava already as well. All right, mine, it's a Defenders Union one today, because I'm going with it was a little moment at the start of the second quarter. It's real brief, but I've said already I love Zerk Thatcher, and it was after we'd had a little bit of a fumbly procession of play. I think Butters had kind of wheeled out of the centre square and got a handball off, then I think to Wines, and Wines tried to handball it on the ground along the line, and Kangaroos took possession and went forward, and they were kicking it after a couple of kicks. They kicked it into the forward 50 with Nick Larkey was leading out and looked like he had a couple of yards on Zerk Thatcher, and Zerk Thatcher just closed in and without pushing him in the back or anything, just got around the body and spoiled the ball with what looked like it was probably going to be a chest mark for Larkey.
We've given it there to Taylor. They have 1v1s up ahead on these. Well, Ratugolea that sagged off. They go looking for Larkey. Good fisting from Zerk Thatcher. Mead had a little fumble.
And, probably taking a shot from 45 out. It's not a goal saving, you don't know if he's going to kick the goal, but that's just the way when I watched it back, the closing speed he had to get to him and then to effect a spoil, because often that ends up pushing the back because you're having to close down. So, at the last second, I thought that one was a really nice one. It was like a minute into the second quarter, I think.
Also, I noticed there was one Burgoyne, it was late in the game, bit of a contest on the broadcast wing, and Burgoyne went down low and hard, and just went lower and harder than Zerha, who's a professional hard-bodied unit. And Burgoyne took the ball away. He belies his stature, young Jace, at times, and he's really made one of the wings his own this year. And I thought, that was another moment where I sort of went, that's just another example of the kid willing to put his body on the line, because he certainly does every week. He's not shy. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I even I almost nominated. He was almost a nomination last week. I gave him an honourable mention because he had a really nice tackle on Ginnivan, which obviously Ginnivan, the ducking for freeze thing has been a major storyline for his career so far. And he tackles Ginnivan, and you can see Ginnivan try, and he's tackling him right around the shoulder is Jace, and it's one of those ones that you'd think 99% of the time Ginnivan does that little shuffle with his shoulder and moves the arm up, but somehow Jace just holds on, like clamps down, like a blue tongue lizard, like on your finger or something like that. And he just clamps down, and just doesn't let his arm get slipped up, and he affects the tackle and ends up just a a contest and a ball up, but his tackling technique and just what he does, he's really come on. Like, I know the preseason reports was he was coming along really nicely, but he's come on even better than probably my expectation was. He's really, really impressed me this year. He's one of my just favourite parts of the season so far.
So he's made one of the wings his own, and was probably the thing over summer when we heard, his Farrell might slip up there, Boak, Wines, Cleary through the summer. Who's going to sort of take that wing role, and it's made it probably a little easier for the club to rotate Boak, Houston at times, Bergman on the other wing, even Drew or Wines when they're sort of taking a bit of, taking a breather as such. The fact that Burgoyne's locked down at wing, it's really given us that other wing as the place that we can rotate our 4 or 5 midfielders through when they're not inside. He's taken ownership of one. I think that's been a really pleasing part of the year.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love him, and it's just so it's that's just a Sweeney for life. Is the fact that Jace Burgoyne and another Burgoyne has come through the ranks and really broken into a Port Adelaide side.
A Burgoyne and a Mead. Lovely to see.
Yes,
a couple of father sons. Yeah, a Burgoyne and a Mead, and Meady's also been really good. But we digress a little.
Yes, yeah, we could talk about because Mead had a really nice game again as well, and he's really. I guess that going forward, it'd be, he gives you that extra little bit of confidence with if we do have some injuries that he can get a bit of run. But player of the year votes, I'll let you go first for your starting with your 1 vote and then up to your best on ground 5 vote.
Yeah, I struggled with the 1, 2, and 3. I think the top 2 we probably might agree with, but my sort of 3, 2, 1 I really struggled with, and I went with Radaglia with 1 vote. I could have easily gone Burgoyne or Houston or Byrne-Jones. I thought the 4 of them were probably around that sort of that mark. So Radaglia 1. Then the next 2 again struggled with. I've gone Boak for 2 and Wines for 3. I think both of those guys deserve votes, and then it was again a bit of a toss up between 1 and 2, or 5 and 4. So I went for Marshall with 4 and HORNE-FRANCIS with 5. So Radaglia, Boak, Wines, Marshall, and HORNE-FRANCIS. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thought HORNE-FRANCIS was the standout again. Clearance work is amazing. Skill with the ball below his knees on the move is as good as anyone we've seen for a long time. You mentioned before he's generational. You and I haven't waxed lyrical about him. I'm sure we could all afternoon. He is a star in every sense of the word star. And I thought he was the standout again on the weekend when up against his old side, gave them a little bit of cheek, gave them a little bit of chest, all the things that as Port Adelaide fans we like to see, because he backed it up, he walked the walk and he talked the talk. So he got my 5.
I love that. I'll go through the rest of my votes, but he was my 5 as well, and I'll go through the rest of them. We can just talk about him for a minute here, because I thought particularly I put a lot of stock into the part of the game when you're effective, and in that first half when we were a little bit off the boil at times, he was the one that was really providing that get going and run and like let's come with me, boys. This is the way it's got to be done. And there was a little bit of it was funny because last year's game against North Melbourne was a little bit of a not that for me I didn't care, but like for anyone that was like probably like neutrals tuning in for the HORNE-FRANCIS first game against North Melbourne game, there wasn't much of what was expected there, like any of the lip and anything. It just went by like it was any other game. But this week there was a little bit of and whether it was any of that or it was just HORNE-FRANCIS, but he was given some lip and they were giving him some, and it was a little bit of there was a little few handbagged at 10 paces kind of stuff, jumper punches, but. The fact that he has a little bit of lip and then goes back and nails that set shot, that's confidence out the bag and just skills. And 24 disposals, which 13 of them contested, 10 clearances, 7 score involvements. And again, I've said a lot this year. I love that he's popping up with basically a goal a game at the moment, which is just the cherry on top of a midfielder that's playing that kind of game. If they can just add a goal or 2 a game as well, is incredible. He's an incredible player, and he's everything that was advertised. Obviously, there's a lot of that stuff going around at the moment with guys like Harley Reid having his year and Nick Dacos, the starter he had. A lot of people are going, oh, the best first year player, and HORNE-FRANCIS because of that interesting first year out at North Melbourne doesn't get brought up in those discussions, but he absolutely deserves to be in the discussion alongside those names as those best next generation guys because he's fucking incredible. His in question before I do my 1 through 4, obviously 5 we agree on there, and there's a couple others we agree on there too. I was tearing my hair out by the 5th or 6th time that Dermot Brereton decided to talk about. It's interesting how he turns his body because he's looking for it, isn't he? But he's trying to compliment him, but also like it was like backhanded. And I was ready to just mute that. I was like, one time, if you want to bring it up as a discussion point once, like, yeah, go for it. That's what you do. But when you bring it up 5 or 6 times, I was like, because it wasn't even the one that he brought up on the wing. You actually look back at the replay, he's slipped, and they were talking about it a lot in telecast that there was a lot of slipping happening. So the one that you've started this whole tirade on was actually just a slip, and the arm came up, and I was like, this is like not the talk we should have about Jason HORNE-FRANCIS. Should be just how fucking good he is, which they did as well. But I thought it was interesting that he decided to go down that road 5 or 6 times during the game.
Don't get Dermot banging a drum because he won't stop. I think last year in particular, his first year with us, we saw obviously the potential. He came off the back of no pre-season. I think what we saw the most last year was he was moving at pace, but he wasn't able to execute at pace because he didn't have the either stability or the confidence in his body. What we've seen this year is not only has he upped his numbers, he's gone from, I think, 17 touches a game to 22, 23. His efficiency using the ball at pace, not just by hand, but by foot as well. Now that we can see that he's got the fitness, the confidence in the body, he's getting to more contests. He's more disciplined than he was. He's giving away less free kicks. He's getting more because he's first to the ball more. What we've seen just feels like we know already we got just his player. I just feel like it's the tip of the iceberg for this guy, that his trajectory could be anything. It could be one of those that, we see young stars come into the game, get to a level and then sort of stay there. And then you see the guys who just year after year get better and better and better and better and become the real elite of the competition. His trajectory, his ability is the one that's got the potential to be that player, that Petrarca, that Bontempelli, the Fife at his best, the Ablets, the guys that for a period of time are just the best player in the competition. He's not there yet, but everything points towards him getting there over a period of time. And his strength, he's a star, and how good is it to have him on our side? And it's also good to have a little bit on opposition supporters who think what they think about him. But hey, he's one of ours now, and you can say what you like about what happened in his first year and how he decided to come home, but couldn't care less. He's a star, and the other sides are only jealous they don't have him.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing there is some of those North Melbourne accounts. There is obviously the nuffy ones that just like to stick the boot in anytime you can. But I've seen it pop up in my Twitter feed just occasionally, just those occasional North Melbourne accounts going, geez, we fucked that one up, didn't we? Like they're just like, God, he's good.
Just ruin the fact, realising what they've lost and the fact.
Yeah, because he is incredible, and as you said, his trajectory. Because as you said, he's not there yet, but he's 20. Like that's incredible. When you think about me living over in the US, the amount of guys that take until we're both baseball fans, and I think about Aaron Judge not even breaking into the Yankees until he's 25 or 26. Like he was, these guys sometimes don't break in until their mid-20s, and then they're the best players in baseball. This guy's obviously the way the AFL works, with the way the draft, guys come in younger, but for him to be playing at this level at 20 is incredible. So,
sorry to be remiss of me not to mention a young Port Adelaide product, Jack O'Loughlin. Pitched a few innings for the Oakland A's yesterday. So well done, Jacko.
He's a Port Adelaide base. He spent some time at Port Adelaide Baseball Club, didn't he?
Yeah, he certainly
Yeah.
did. Not claiming any credit whatsoever, but my son sort of played in amongst junior sides with him, and I might have like swept the bags up or something like that from time to time. So never had any influence on Jack. Baseball's not my natural game, but yeah, saw him as a junior, at 12, 13, 14, pitching at that age, and yeah, it was clear that the kid had something more than everyone else. So yeah, well done to Jacko for making his majors debut. But who did you have 4, 3, 2, and 1?
So yeah, starting from a 1, I actually the one difference we have is I don't have Boak in mine, and it was very, very difficult to not put him in there, and I still actually don't feel good about it, but that's just the nature of the votes. I had to put Jace Burgoyne in at 1. He had 23 disposals, 12 contested, going at 7. Like I have a point that once you're going over 20 disposals and you're still operating near 80% efficiency. And then 6 score involvements, 9 intercepts, 4 tackles. He was doing a bit of everything, so I had to get Jace Burgoyne in there, and unfortunately, Boak was the one that missed out. I have Asava at 2, just running at 100% efficiency and just doing everything he did. Sometimes it's not always about the disposal numbers. His job on the day he affected flawlessly, and it's just unfortunate the defenders don't get it, because you could easily make a case for him to be higher up as well, because he did what he had to do without missing a beat. So, and then I think 3 through 5 we actually match up on. I have Ollie at 3, which I think you did as well.
Sure did.
Yeah, 9 score involvements, 9 contested possessions, 6 clearances, tackles, and 2 goals as well, which is a plus point for Ollie as well. And he's popping up there a little bit more, and yeah, but the inside work and everything he was doing in the midfield is what really did the job. And yeah, Todd at 4. You could almost make a case for him to be, again, for playing his role, to get 5 goals out of his 13 disposals, 8 score involvements. As he said, his assist numbers are sneaky good, like direct goal assists. But yeah, it took 11 marks in the day too. Like, and he's getting up the ground a little bit when he had to as well, and but took 5 marks inside 50, and obviously kicked the 5 goals. So yeah, it's always fun to have a tough week in the votes. I do stress about it, because then I feel like Travis Boak's not going to see these votes probably, but I still feel bad because he deserved to be in there. So yeah,
shout out to Trav. I'm sure he'll tune in at some point while he's rolling in his Mercedes. So I agree that it's painstaking, because you feel like you're judging them, and you are judging them, but you're only judging their effort on the weekend. And as you said, it's a bit cutthroat. So you've got to throw. You've only got 5 to pick from, so you got to put them in there. But yeah, look, we obviously, I think our top 6 were the same, because I would have had Burgoyne just out, and you had Boak just out. So yeah, interesting that our top 6 pretty well aligned there, just slightly different order. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, we've had I think it's 3 times this year that me and Jamie have actually at 5 through 1 exact positioning been the same, and we don't talk about it all beforehand either. So so that's about it for the review. But I just wanted to you live locally, and obviously, as your Twitter handle states, you're very, very much dyed in the wool. You're an Alberton boy, and live locally, so you go to a lot of the SANFL games, which sadly I keep up on the results and how just kind of who's playing well, as much as I can from over here. But you go to the games and get involved in that way. So just give us a bit I know the results haven't been going the way we would hope, but it's the nature of where a modern iteration of the Port Adelaide Footy Club is, and our relationship with the State League and everything going forward as well. But just give us a bit of an insight into how we're going as far as who's playing well and who's putting their hand up, I guess, and general thoughts as well with whatever's going on down there. Because as I said, I don't see much vision, so I'm open to all insights you can give us here at the back end of the podcast.
All right, strap yourself in. No.
I got another beer here, so I'm ready.
We're hamstrung by by the conditions that we play under, and our top ups. It does make it really difficult to develop our younger guys when our standard of our top ups, and I don't mean this disparagingly to several of them, because there's Nick Moore, who's our SANFL captain, and Cody Zust, a couple of guys who are they give absolutely everything, and kudos to them. Whenever I bump into them, I always thank them for their efforts, because they couldn't give any more on a week-to-week basis. they're fantastic for our SANFL side. But I guess our push into the VFL is not based on the overall standard of the competition by way of, is the VFL a better competition than the SANFL? Well, no, it's not. But what it is it means that the top up players coming in are more evenly placed. Therefore, across the board, the competition is a little more even. It's not as good a standard as the SANFL. Want to stress that. So it's not like that we look at the SANFL as being substandard. It's actually too good for developing kids who, not every 18-year-old is Jason Horne-Francis and comes in playing at the level he comes in. Some 18-year-olds need 2 or 3 years of second-tier footy to get themselves ready. And when you're 18, for instance, young Kyle Marshall, no relation to Todd. Kyle was playing under 18s at South Adelaide. We draft him, and the following year, his first game, he's playing Glenelg standing. Liam McBean, who's a hardened professional, is 27, 28 years old, big body, and difficult for Marshall to develop his game when he's up against someone of that standard. And Tom Scully at the other end is probably finding the opposite. Young key forward, probably playing ahead of his time at this level. So across the board, our results have been disappointing, to say the least. Haven't had a win yet, but Ollie Lord, from a depth point of view, so I think about our AFL side, and we haven't really had a lot of competition for spots at AFL level. So to be 8-3 is a good sign. Ollie Lord obviously hurt himself pre-season, is just getting back up and running, but doesn't quite look there. The SANFL had a bye last week for the state game, so probably would have done him a world of good, and now get a bit of a block of training into him for the second half of the year. Mackenzie and Cleary defensively. Cleary's been playing on the wing a bit. Both of those guys had hurt themselves, just minor injuries, but missed a couple of weeks. Quinton Narkle strained his foot. He had a few weeks out. He's just come back. Evans, Williams, they just haven't looked like they're pressing for selection other than if they're needed. So obviously, when Lockie Jones went down the other week, Ryan Burton had a couple of down weeks. Dylan Williams came in, but it was more for need than it was for him pushing his way into the side, and probably the same for Fraser Evans. He came in needs-based as opposed to form-based. So it's good to see a few guys getting back on the park. A couple of lads I want to mention for development over the next few years is Tom Anastasopoulos, who looks like he's a really feisty, aggressive, hard at it small forward. Looks like he's got a little bit of cheek about him, and I think with a bit of confidence against his peers in the VFL or in the second tier, he'll stand out. And Will Lorenz is just silky, just a classy mover. We've seen Josh Sin come out of the SANFL and look pretty good as he's made his way in. And Will Lorenz, keep an eye on that kid. He looks silky. He's got that sort of medium-sized midfielder look about him. He's not slight. He's got a bit of a shape about him, so he'll come in and perhaps play that midfield role. But a couple of players I wanted to touch on, I mentioned before, Kyle Marshall defensively, tall defender, 202 or 203 centimetres. Needs to put a bit of bulk on. He's getting there. Moves pretty well. Defensively, he's good. Just needs his ball movement to tidy up. Tom Scully, forward, who's really put some weight on, put some muscle on his frame. He looks like he's got some potential. I think Dixon perhaps goes out at the end of the year. Lord comes in. Scully's just going to be in that really sweet spot where Ollie Lord was 18 months ago, and just ready to put some pressure on the guys above. And Tom McCullum, who I picked out a couple of years ago when we recruited him or drafted him in, he's sort of one of those really untidy, socked down, shaggy hair, jumper untucked, halfback flankers, who just
that's me.
well, Tom. He looks like he's just starting to get a little bit, but yeah, look, as you said, overall, as I said earlier, for the betterment of our second tier team, I think we need to go into a competition where the playing standard might not be as good, which sounds counterproductive to development. But what it is it's a more level playing field. The other AFL sides in the VFL, they're playing against like sides, whereas we're playing in a semi-professional competition against seasoned harder bodies, and it'll be a sad day when we do leave the SANFL, but I don't have any doubt that for our betterment going forward, and probably for that of the SANFL as well, think what you may of that competition and that, but it's our where we came from. It is our ground, the SANFL, and without it we wouldn't be where we are. But it's time for us to move into a comp where we can develop our players on an even keel with the rest of the competition.
It's always a tough conversation because some people hold fast and true that there has to be, the Magpies in the SNFL, but it's just, as much as, history doesn't, make room for nostalgia. Progress doesn't make room for nostalgia in history. It's you've got to, at some point, there was, when there was state leagues and everyone was battling for position, but it's quite clear the AFL, or, if you want to be cynical, the AFL/VFL is the clearest national standard, and the Port Adelaide Football Club, for all intents and purposes, has moved into that competition. And it's been nice to be in the SNFL since still. And, whatever you think about the history of how that happened, it was quite, fractious for a while, but it's been nice to be in it as one club for the last, decade and a bit. But yeah, as you've well rounded out for the listener, it's as far as the sole the purpose for the Port Adelaide Football Club is to win premierships at the AFL level. So the development has to align with that to make that happen, and it works well for all the clubs that are already in the VFL, or what will likely become just the national second tier when it all rounds out. It's working well for them. So we've got to go with that, and I think it'll be good for the SNFL going forward too, to just be the state league that is separate, because the other hard and true SNFL fans of their clubs, and I respect it. They can be very cynical about the presence of Port and Adelaide at times, and about how their role fits into the SNFL. And I think the competition, as long as it can figure itself out beyond our clubs leaving, will be better for it as far as its own competition, and probably you might get some people that then find a club. It might be hard for a Port fan to find a club because everyone has hated us for so long. But you might just start going again. I don't know how it'll work really, because you'll still be supporting obviously the side as it goes into a national second tier. But yeah, it'll be. I think it's just what needs to happen.
I pretty strongly feel that in 2014, upon amalgamation, we probably should have gone into the Chevron Guernsey in the SANFL.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason that we couldn't still wear the bars for our home showdown, because it is our history, it is us, and you don't need an emblem or a logo on that Guernsey when you see it to know that that's the Port Adelaide Guernsey.
Mm-hmm.
But to be frank, I think we're tarnishing the legacy of that Guernsey now. For 10 years, we have basically it's their practice matches that we play in. I know for several years, through sort of 2014, 15, 17, I think, when we lost grand finals, we were
so fucking close to another one there, but
So three under a goal to arch enemies in Glenelg, Sturton, and Norwood. But since that period, probably since about 2018, 2019, and definitely post COVID, it's been. I think we're tarnishing the legacy and the history of that Guernsey now. It's time to retire it. I believe they'll still, probably the club, I think, probably still look to wear it when we play games at Alberton, because obviously the VFL or the second tier comp will still host games here. Whether
which would be great.
A long way off. Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a long way off before there's a true second tier, if ever, curtain raiser type operation, because the way broadcasting works, the amount of Thursday and Friday night games, etc., it's unlikely that there'll be curtain raisers to AFL games. So there'll still be weekend, Saturday afternoon SANFL footy here, and we'll just get to argue with Essendon and Melbourne supporters instead of Westie and Norwood supporters. So look, I'm soaking up all the SANFL games at Alberton this year because Friday night we host Sturt, and very likely that's the last time we'll ever play Sturt at Alberton. So it's when we say it's history in the making, it certainly is, because it'll be a thing of the past before we know it. And whatever attachment we've got to it, it's our roots, it's where we're from, and things are about to change there. But yes, from a development point of view, we need to focus on our players and what's best for them and what's best for developing our AFL side and talent for that. So the move is on, I'm sure, in earnest. And I don't know if you saw Ken Hinkley's words on AFL 360 last night. He was pretty strong at the AFL, wanting them to make a decision on AFL second tier comp, Northern Academies, tribunals, umpiring, etc., etc. He was really, really strongly worded, and when he said it, I thought that's pretty well scripted by the hierarchy, because we still don't know if the AFL are willing to have us either in a second tier comp or the VFL next year. But I think our move is afoot, that we're on the way out, and we've made it clear that we want to get out of the SANFL, and sooner the better, which makes me think that's next year. But it's a matter of where do we go? Will it be funded, and are we welcome there? So a lot to play out in that space, and a really important space, I might add, because it hasn't worked well for our development. Our drafting in recent years in the first round has been elite. Our recruiting's been elite. But when you think about players we've developed from sort of those 20 to 30 to 50 pick in the draft, we haven't really developed it perhaps as quickly as we'd like, or as well as we'd like. So it's a move that's on, and a really important one, I think, for the future of our club and the future of our AFL side.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as I said, it's unfortunate because it does sound a little bit cold-hearted, but unfortunately, it's just the way going forward. You have to the AFL club is where Port Adelaide is now. So, my fandom started watching, I was born in 1988, so my first memories are the 93, 94 years, and certainly comeback against Woodville back then. And it's just so I have my first love came from the SANFL, but that developed into the AFL, and that's just, you've just got to move with the times a little bit. And that's, I studied history at uni, so I'm a very big, I love history and adore what all that means, but also what that means is moving forward with that history and not letting yourself get bogged down in it either. And you've just got to move with the times a little bit. So, I appreciate the insight there too. Especially with a couple of those, draft picks from last year you mentioned. I was about to say Lorenz, and I knew I was going to butcher Anastopoulos. Yes, I've already butchered it, but I appreciate it here. But I appreciate it
for 3 days.
Just standing in front of a mirror, pointing at yourself and saying, "I'm going to get this right." And that's bad on me because I like to try to be able to pronounce, but it's just like I just am famously not very articulate at times. So especially after I've had a couple of beers and it's around midnight here. But it's good to hear that a couple of those guys that we drafted last year, and it's good. It's the last year's draft was obviously compromised by a heavy trading, but it still shows that there's value in making sure you get those picks right as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before we wrap up here, just obviously I'm doing a preview with Jamie tomorrow night with Carlton, so we'll have I'll have a 45-minute chat with him about that, which will be a lot of waffling and uselessness, but it'll be fun as well. But just give us a minute here or whatever before we wrap up. Just what are your thoughts going into Carlton this week, this Thursday night?
Pretty important one, because I think like us, their best is good enough to really push the top sides at the top, but they've shown this year when they aren't on their game, they don't threaten the good side. So they've had a little bit of an up and down last 5 or 6 weeks. It's going to be pretty wet here in Adelaide, which we're going to get the first rain for about 3 months, and probably couldn't have come at a better time for Radagalia and Zirk Thatcher. I'd imagine they'll both be watching the bomb app pretty closely and hoping the rain does come to make life for Mackay and Kerno a little bit harder. But I guess it comes down to the midfield and the first hands in the midfield. So as I mentioned earlier, Soldo appeared to play sort of train with the main side today, and Sweet didn't. So Soldo only played about 30 minutes with the Magpies on the weekend, so he got a little bit of run in his legs, but didn't overwork himself for sure. So it looks as though he'll come back in, which De Koning's been pretty important for them the last couple of weeks. So that's a good matchup or an important matchup. And Soldo, another one we obviously, without him playing on the weekend, we've mentioned the Zirk Thatcher Radagalia moves and how we've enjoyed that. But I think Soldo, if you ask me who has probably surprised me the most with what they've given us early on, I think Soldo out of those three would have surprised me the most. I wasn't sure whether it was him or Sweet that would really take the mantle. I mentioned the internal trial earlier, and I think by halftime of the internal trial, I sort of went, well, it's Soldo's position to lose. And he's made the most of it. He is a premiership player. He has been part of a very successful side there at Richmond, so he surprised me. So a big in with him, I think, to get first hands. What's probably going to be a fairly wet, slippery contest. Their key forwards are obviously their biggest danger. They've got a few injuries or a couple of guys back, but I think they're probably more likely to get some guys back after the bye. So I would suggest betting would say we're probably fairly firm favourites and should be. However, one of those games where you couldn't go in with a great deal of confidence, but you probably go in thinking we should win. And the betting is $1.65 to $2.24. So that's probably reflective of where I see it. That it should be a win in our home game before we go to the bye and reset for the second half of the year.
No, it's a massive test. We talk about it a lot, I think, as Port fans, is like the tests that come, and it's kind of ironic that the test that was Geelong, which is probably the one we just expected to lose, was the one that ended up we passed. But the ones that we really look forward to, such as Collingwood, and even the showdown, even though Crows on paper aren't the top four side, we know showdowns and how they work, and particularly how the Crows play against us the last few years. We've failed those tests this year, so this provides another one, especially Carlton coming in as a reasonable side, but as you mentioned, kind of just a little bit up and down as well. But on our home deck, and with a bye coming up, there's no real excuses to be trying to manage players for the next week. You're getting a bit of time off afterwards. So and then with some of those niggle things. But you just mentioned Soldo. I think I was doing a quick run through of our votes for the first 10 weeks, and I think Soldo, he's got 10 or 11 total votes. Those first few weeks, he picked up some of those ones and twos in our votes. So he was definitely probably the surprise of the pickups. And I think we ran through some stats earlier in the year that he was leading the AFL in a few like hit outs to advantage and some of those little particular stats for ruckman. He's been really great, and I've been really impressed with him. Sweet was threw his body around a little bit more on the weekend, but Soldo's out and out the number one choice. And I'll be happy to see him back on the field this weekend, I think. So, well, this weekend, Thursday. Anyway, that's about it. That wraps it up. I appreciate you coming on, Dave. As I said, we've chatted for a long time over, Twitter and the like. And as I said, you helped me get a obscure Guernsey last year and everything. But, I appreciate you coming on for the first time on the podcast. And, we'll definitely be looking to get you back on here and there over in the coming weeks and months and everything else. And hopefully we're chatting a lot more good Port footy the next time we chat as well.
Absolutely. Look, thank you for having me on. Hope Ryan's enjoying a good little break. And Ryan. Sorry, I hope he's enjoying a nice little holiday. I've just seen my phone. So, a work colleague's trying to call me who's Ryan. So,
you're good. You're all good.
I hope he's enjoying a good break. And it was good to chat with you. Thanks for having me on. And go the Power.
Yeah, Khan the fucking pair. That about wraps it up. We'll be back tomorrow with a preview of Jamie for the Carlton game, so tune in for that one. Apart from that, it's just follow on the socials and all that stuff. It'll be on the screen and whatever. But yeah, that's about it. Khan the fucking pair.
Cheers.